What causes dust to appear huge in macro photography? Imagine zooming in so close that tiny specks become as big as a pebble in your shot. That's what happens in macro photography when dust suddenly looks enormous. When you use macro lenses, you're focusing at very short distances, often at a 1-to-1 ratio or greater. This means the tiny dust particles that are usually invisible or barely noticeable now appear much larger in your images. The reason is simple. Magnification makes everything look bigger, especially tiny objects like dust. Another factor is the aperture setting. When shooting macro, photographers often choose small apertures like f/8 or smaller to get more of the subject in focus. These small openings cause light to hit the sensor more directly and from specific angles. Dust particles on the lens or sensor cast sharper shadows or appear as dark spots because the light rays are more perpendicular. When using wider apertures, the light comes from more angles, softening the dust's appearance and sometimes making it less obvious. Dust on the lens elements or on the sensor's protective filter becomes more visible in macro because the high magnification enlarges these tiny particles. Dust on the sensor or filters appears as dark spots or shadows, especially when stopping down the aperture. This is because the small aperture increases the depth of field and makes shadows cast by dust more defined. Dust inside the lens can also enter through the lens breathing process, especially in zoom lenses with moving parts, and become visible in macro shots. Lighting plays a role too. When you use controlled lighting setups, shadows and highlights become more pronounced. Directional light can make dust particles stand out more because the shadows cast by dust are sharper, and the contrast makes them easier to see. This is why macro photographers often notice dust more when they are working with bright, focused light sources. To keep dust from ruining your macro images, it's best to regularly clean your lens elements, filters, and sensor filters. Using a blower or sensor cleaning kit can help remove dust without scratching your equipment. When possible, shoot with wider apertures to soften the appearance of dust spots, but keep in mind this reduces depth of field. Handling your camera carefully and using a tripod can also prevent dust from entering the camera body during shoots. In summary, dust appears huge in macro photography because the high magnification enlarges tiny particles, and the optical conditions like small apertures and lighting make shadows and spots more visible. Knowing how these factors work together helps you understand why dust can seem so prominent and how to manage it for cleaner, sharper macro images.